Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Mikey Reacts. Today we are reacting to another video from PRAGER U, Prague University. It's obviously not an accredited university, but they produce really good content and really informative stuff. So we're going to watch that. It's a 5-minute video, so it shouldn't be too long. And it's why did the Democratic South become Republican? It's actually really interesting because I've always wondered that. Obviously, you know, as everyone does, during the Jim Crow times and before that too, the South was they were Democrat, and obviously now it seems as though the northern states are more Democrat states, and the South is now primarily Republican. Of course, there are some states and some cities within states that are more Democrat. For example, you have Atlanta in Georgia. So Georgia is a Democrat. Is a Republican state, but Atlanta is run by Democrats, and the same thing is true of Florida and Miami and Orlando. Miami and Orlando are both Democrat cities, but the state itself is Republican. So let's find out exactly what they have to say. Don't forget that if you like this video, you can find more of this kind of content on my Patreon, my Twitter and Instagram. You'll find them in the descriptions below. And also, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Your subscriptions and your likes and your comments down below of any recommendations really help this channel grow, and it's really nice to see such amazing support from you guys. So I hope you enjoy this video, and let's get to it.
Once upon a time, every student of history, and that meant pretty much everyone with a high school education, knew this. The Democratic Party was the party of slavery and Jim Crow, and the Republican Party was the party of emancipation and racial integration. Democrats were the Confederacy, and Republicans were the Union. Jim Crow Democrats were dominant in the South, and socially tolerant Republicans were dominant in the North. But then, in the 1960s and 70s, everything supposedly flipped. Suddenly, the Republicans became the racists, and the Democrats became the champions of civil rights. Fabricated by left-leaning academic elites and journalists, the story went like this. Republicans couldn't win a national election by appealing to the better nature of the country. They could only win by appealing to the worst. Attributed to Richard Nixon, the media's all-purpose bad guy, this came to be known as the Southern Strategy. It was very simple. Win elections by winning the South. And to win the South, appeal to racists. So the Republicans, the party of Lincoln, were to now be labeled the party of rednecks. But this story of the two parties switching identities is a myth. Okay. In fact, it's 3 myths wrapped into one false narrative. Let's take a brief look at each myth in turn. Myth number 1, in order to be competitive in the South, Republicans started to pander to white racists in the 1960s. Fact, Republicans actually became competitive in the South as early as 1928, when Republican Herbert Hoover won over 47% of the South's popular vote against Democrat Al Smith.
Okay.
In 1952, Republican President Dwight Eisenhower won the southern states of Tennessee, Florida, and Virginia. And in 1956, he picked up Louisiana, Kentucky, and West Virginia too.
Okay.
And that was after he supported the Supreme Court decision in Brown versus Board of Education that desegregated public schools, and after he sent the 101st Airborne to Little Rock Central High School to enforce integration.
Wow.
Myth number 2, Southern Democrats, angry with the Civil Rights Act of 1964, switched parties. Fact, of the 21 Democratic senators who opposed the Civil Rights Act, just 1 became a Republican.
Wow.
The other 20 continued to be elected as Democrats or were replaced by other Democrats. On average, those 20 seats didn't go Republican for another 2.5 decades.
Wow.
Myth number 3, since the implementation of the Southern Strategy, the Republicans have dominated the South. Fact, Richard Nixon, the man who is often credited with creating the Southern Strategy, lost the Deep South in 1968. In contrast, Democrat Jimmy Carter nearly swept the region in 1976, 12 years after the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Wow.
And in 1992, Over 28 years later, Democrat Bill Clinton won Georgia, Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia. The truth is, Republicans didn't hold a majority of Southern congressional seats until 1994, 30 years after the Civil Rights Act.
Oh, wow.
As Kevin Williamson of National Review writes, if Southern rednecks ditched the Democrats because of a civil rights law passed in 1964, it is strange that they waited until the late 1980s and early 1990s to do so.
Yeah.
They say things move slower in the South, but not that slow. So what really happened? Why does the South now vote overwhelmingly Republican? Because the South itself has changed. Its values have changed. The racism that once defined it doesn't anymore. Its values today are conservative ones, pro-life, pro-gun, and pro-small government. And here's the proof. Southern whites are far more likely to vote for a black conservative like Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina than a white liberal. In short, history has moved on. Like other regions of the country, the South votes values, not skin color. The myth of the Southern strategy is just the Democrats' excuse for losing the South, and yet another way to smear Republicans with the label racist. Don't buy it. I'm Carol Swain, Professor of Political Science and Law at Vanderbilt University for Prager University.
Awesome. That's really cool.
Thanks for watching. To keep our videos free, click here.
Ooh. That's honestly really insightful. I wasn't sure about why the switch was, and I didn't even know about the myths themselves, to be honest. I was completely ignorant on this point. But it's really interesting to see that actually the change was really slow, and it wasn't towards 1994. She said that really they held a majority in the South. And actually it's a really good point, because I think conservatives are far more likely to vote for a black Republican than a white liberal, and that can be seen now. You know, I genuinely think skin tone doesn't matter, and I think that really proves it. I know this is quite political. I'm not going to get political, but this is just an informative video, and I find it really interesting. I don't really have too many opinions on it, or that I will share here, but yeah, genuinely really awesome information. I really like Prager U because they're really informative. They lay out their points really nicely, and that was really eye-opening and insightful, because of course I knew that Democrat Party was had a huge stronghold in the South, and well, for all American history until the 1990s, and I knew that, but I wasn't sure why or exactly how big the stronghold was. But that was really awesome information, guys. Thank you so much for being here and watching this with me. Hopefully, if you didn't know this information, you also learned something, and if you did know it, you watched me learn something. So that's really cool, guys. Thank you so much for being here and watching this video with me. I really hope you have a great day, and don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed the content, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of it. Also hit the notification bell, that way you're not going to miss any new videos that I put out. And don't forget to have a look in the description for Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon. Patreon will have a lot more of this stuff, but more in depth. So that will be really interesting for you guys. It's only $5 per month. So I will see you on the next video, guys. Have a fantastic day.